My name is Jessica Carter. I'm 42 years old, and the day my family finally discovered who I really was, 3 people ended up needing medical attention and my father's business empire collapsed in less than an hour. It started with a phone call on a warm September afternoon in my modest Los Angeles apartment. My younger brother, Daniel, was getting married to the daughter of Anthony Delgado, a powerhouse in the San Diego luxury real estate scene. Naturally, the wedding was being marketed in our family like it was the event of the year. Beachfront resort, 500 guests, state senators, Hollywood producers, the whole production. My mother called me, her voice dripping with that familiar blend of condescension and cigarette smoke. "Jessica, darling, about the wedding next weekend." She hesitated, and I could almost hear the flick of her lighter. "Perhaps it would be best if you didn't overshare about your job to the Delgados. You know how these people are about appearances." My job. That's what she called it. 20 years in federal law enforcement, most of them with the DEA, 8 as special agent in charge of a multi-state task force, and to her, it was still just my job. "What exactly would you like me to tell them, Mom?" I asked. "Well, you could just say you work for the government. Keep it vague. Anthony Delgado is a very important man. We don't want them thinking we're, well, you know." I knew. I'd been the family disappointment for 2 decades. While Daniel followed Dad into their luxury importer business, living in a sprawling villa outside Santa Barbara, I'd spent my career chasing drug traffickers for what I'd like to call cop wages. My title, my cases, my division's success, they meant nothing to them. All they saw was my government salary compared to Daniel's yacht. "I'll keep it simple," I said, already knowing what that meant. Another family gathering where I'd be introduced with a vague nod. Jessica works somewhere in government, while Daniel's latest business acquisition was toasted with champagne. The wedding venue was the kind of place you only see in magazines. Terraced lawns cascading down to the Pacific Ocean, white canopies swaying in the breeze, flower arrangements worth more than most cars. I wore a tailored navy dress, practical but sharp, and tried to blend into the sea of designer gowns and custom tuxedos. I didn't get far before Olivia, my cousin and Daniel's maid of honor, found me at the bar. Olivia had always been the golden child. Stanford MBA, married to a hedge fund manager, 2 perfect kids in private schools. She greeted me with the trained brightness of someone used to networking. "Jessica, still in that little apartment in LA?" she asked, sipping champagne without waiting for an answer. "It suits me," I replied. "Oh, I'm sure it does. Daniel told me you're still doing that government thing. Didn't you ever want to do something a little more ambitious? I mean, you're 42. Most people have their careers figured out by now." I took a slow sip of wine. "Well, I suppose someone has to do those jobs," as she said, her smile thin. When people ask what my cousins do, I love talking about Daniel's import business. Just last month, he bought another warehouse near the port. "But when they ask about you," she shrugged. "I usually just change the subject." Before I could respond, my father strolled over, impeccable tuxedo, Cuban cigar in one hand, expensive whiskey in the other. He'd built his company from scratch, importing a luxury goods from South America and the Caribbean. Watches, artwork, handcrafted furniture. He was proud of his rags to riches story and never missed a chance to remind me I could have been part of it. "There are my girls," he said, wrapping an arm around Olivia. "Jessica, still with that task force, right? Very noble. Doesn't pay much, but noble." He chuckled at his own joke while Olivia laughed along. "Of course, if you ever want to make real money," he added, "there's always a place for you in the family business. Daniel's been growing our South American network. Lots of opportunity there." "I'm fine where I am, Dad," I said. "Of course," he replied, patting my arm as if humoring me. "Still, I worry about you. That old Jeep you drive, the neighborhood you live in. A woman your age should have some security." The conversation ended when the wedding coordinator announced dinner. As we walked toward the reception tent, I noticed a small group of men in dark suits near the entrance. They weren't guests. My trained eye caught the subtle bulge under their jackets. Law enforcement. And they were scanning the crowd. I felt the first twinge of what was coming. During dinner, I found myself at the long family table, surrounded by relatives eager to showcase their latest acquisitions: vacation homes in Aspen, vintage wine cellars, imported cars. Anthony Delgado, the groom's new father-in-law, was holding court. His voice carried easily over the clinking of silverware and the muted surf outside. In real estate, Anthony was saying, a success is all about connections. The right people in the right places. My family has been in development for 3 generations. We know how to get things done, especially in the Caribbean market. My father nodded eagerly. Exactly. That's why our partnership works so well. Your contacts, my expertise in sourcing rare, luxury goods, it's a perfect match. Olivia leaned toward me with a smirk. "See, Jessica, this is what real success looks like. Building wealth, having influence. Not sitting in some government office shuffling papers." I was about to remind her that my government office had more security clearances than she could imagine when my attention shifted. Those men in suits I'd spotted earlier were moving closer. Their formation was deliberate, calm but decisive. I knew that walk. One of them, a tall man with sharp eyes, stopped at our table. "Mr. Delgado," he said, his tone polite but firm. "I'm Special Agent Torres with the DEA. We need to speak with you." The table went dead silent. Anthony Delgado's smile faltered, though he quickly recovered. "Agent, this is my daughter's wedding. Surely we can arrange a meeting another." "I'm afraid this can't wait, sir." Torres glanced around, his eyes briefly locking with mine. In that split second, I saw it, recognition. "We have a federal warrant for your arrest in connection with Operation Pacific Crown," Torres said. My pulse quickened. My operation. 3 years of undercover work targeting a drug trafficking network that used high-end import businesses as fronts, moving cocaine and fentanyl from Colombia through Central America into Southern California, hidden inside shipments of custom furniture and art. My father pushed back his chair so hard it rocked. "Hold on just a minute. Anthony runs a legitimate business." "Sir, I'm going to need you to remain seated," another agent said, positioning himself behind my father's chair. "We have questions for you as well, Mr. Carter." The blood drained from my father's face. Around us, confusion was morphing into panic. Daniel sat frozen, his new wife clutching his arm. That's when Torres turned to me. "Agent Carter," he said evenly, "we have the surveillance footage you requested, as well as the wiretaps from the Santa Barbara warehouse. The task force is standing by for your orders." The silence that followed was heavier than the ocean outside. Olivia's jaw dropped. "Agent Carter?" You're not just some desk worker? I stood slowly, feeling 20 years of underestimation and dismissal distill into this single moment. Special Agent in Charge Jessica Carter, DEA. I oversee narcotics investigations for all of Southern California and the Pacific Territories, EI said, including the investigation into Carter Imports and your partnership with the Delgado organization. Olivia blinked at me like I'd grown another head. But you drive a Jeep. You live in government housing near the field office. And I drive an unmarked vehicle because I've spent the last 3 years undercover. I looked directly at my father. The same traffickers you've been helping move product into this country, Dad. His hands trembled. Jessica, I swear to you, I had no idea. Anthony always seemed legitimate. 3 warehouses, EI said, my voice steady. 52 shipments over 2 years. Over $200 million worth of narcotics hidden inside your so-called luxury goods. We have the manifests, the offshore accounts, the payoffs to dock workers. Torres nodded to the other agents. Mr. Carter, you have the right to remain silent. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the room. My father sagged against the agents as they led him toward the exit. Daniel's face had gone ghost white. My mother's hands shook so badly she dropped her wine glass. Jessica, my father said, turning back once, his voice hoarse. How long have you known? About the trafficking? 3 years. About your role? 1.5 years. His eyes filled with something between disbelief and betrayal. You've been investigating your own father. I've been investigating a criminal network, I said evenly. That happened to involve my father. The wedding had officially turned into a federal crime scene. The reception tent was chaos now, agents in dark suits moving between tables, speaking quietly to guests, pulling certain individuals aside. The string quartet had stopped mid-song, their instruments resting awkwardly in their laps. Waitstaff froze, unsure whether to keep serving dinner or run for the parking lot. I stepped away from the family table, scanning the room with the instinct that had kept me alive through dozens of takedowns. Every movement, every nervous glance, every whisper became a piece of the larger picture. Agent Torres approached again. The perimeter is secure. We've identified 4 additional subjects on site, 2 Delgado business partners, 1 Carter Imports manager, and a warehouse foreman. All are being detained for questioning. I nodded. Make sure the foreman is separated from the others. He's our most likely early cooperator. Olivia's voice cut through the hum of activity. Jessica, what is happening? You can't just... I turned to her, my patience worn thin. Olivia, what's happening is that your cousin has been running the largest DEA operation on the West Coast, and your uncle, my father, was a key player in the network. That's what's happening. Her mouth opened, then closed, and for once she had nothing to say. At the far end of the tent, Anthony Delgado was being led out, his hands cuffed behind his back, his expression still composed in that way only career criminals manage. Daniel's new bride was sobbing into her mother's shoulder, the lace of her wedding gown snagging on a chair as she clung to her. I approached my father, who was now seated on a folding chair near the exit, 2 agents standing over him. His face looked years older than it had an hour ago. You could have come to me, I said quietly. You could have told me what was going on. We might have found a way to protect you if you cooperated early. He shook his head. I thought I was protecting the family. The money is drug money, EI finished. It buys Ferraris, not protection. My mother appeared then, her mascara streaked from crying. Jessica, please. Your father made mistakes, but he's still family. You're in charge. Can't you just fix this? I stared at her, remembering the years of dinner table lectures about how my career was a waste, how Daniel was the real success story. Mom, if Dad gives up everything he knows, names, roots, financial records, the prosecutors might offer him a deal. But I will not compromise 20 years of integrity to cover for him. Her face twisted. So that's it? You'll just let them take him? I'm not letting anything happen, EI said, my voice low. He broke the law. I enforce it. Torres returned with a tablet. Search warrants are ready for execution. We've got Carter Imports headquarters, the Santa Barbara warehouse, and the Ventura storage yard. Do you want to oversee the ops? I looked at my father, still cuffed, my mother trembling beside him, Daniel standing pale and silent, Olivia staring at me as though she'd just met me for the first time. Yes, EI said. Let's finish it. Outside, the coastal breeze carried the faint sound of sirens as unmarked SUVs pulled up. The agents moved with practiced precision, their radios crackling with updates from field teams already mobilizing. Guests huddled together, whispering about what they'd just witnessed. I caught fragments: DA, drug trafficking, her father, undercover agent. As I walked toward the convoy, I heard Olivia call after me. Jessica, wait. I stopped. I'm sorry, she said, her voice unsteady. We didn't know. We didn't understand. No, ER replied. You didn't understand because you never bothered to ask. You saw my Jeep and my apartment and assumed that meant I'd failed. You measured my worth against bank accounts and square footage. Her eyes glistened. Family is supposed to support each other. Family doesn't mock someone's career for 20 years and then ask for favors when that career becomes inconvenient. I turned away, stepping into the lead vehicle. The door shut with a solid thud, sealing off the noise of the wedding-turned-crime scene. The convoy rolled out, heading north toward the Carter Imports facilities. This was no longer just an investigation. It was personal. By the time we reached the Carter Imports headquarters in Santa Barbara, the search teams were already in place. The sleek, glass-front building looked harmless from the outside, just another high-end import company catering to the wealthy. But I knew what was inside wasn't all marble sculptures and mahogany furniture. As I stepped out of the SUV, Agent Torres fell into stride beside me. Warrants served at both warehouses, he reported. Ventura site already turning up modified shipping containers. False panels, hidden compartments. And get this, dogs hit on at least 3 crates marked as handcrafted Peruvian dining sets. I gave a sharp nod. Secure and catalog everything. I want chain of custody airtight. This case is going to trial, and it has to be bulletproof. Inside, the reception area smelled faintly of polished wood and expensive cologne. A receptionist sat frozen behind the desk, her phone still in her hand as if she'd been caught mid-dial. Ma'am, EI said, flashing my badge, please step away from the phone. This is an active federal search. Her eyes darted to a tall man emerging from an office down the hall, Carter Imports Operations Manager, Miles Grant. I recognized him from surveillance photos. He froze when he saw me. "Mr. Grant," Torres said, "we have a warrant for your office. Please remain seated while we conduct the search." The team moved fast, agents spreading out, documenting every desk, computer, and file cabinet. In the main conference room, long mahogany tables were covered with thick binders. Torres flipped one open to reveal shipping manifests, neatly typed, stamped, and, as we already suspected, altered. "Looks like someone's been creative with their descriptions," Torres said. I scanned paperwork, antique bronze vases that weighed over 200 pounds each, marble garden statues with suspiciously hollow cores. Every page was a breadcrumb leading back to my father's empire. In a side office, a forensics tech waved me over. "You're gonna want to see this." He pointed to a computer monitor displaying offshore bank statements, accounts in the Cayman Islands, Belize, and Panama. Millions of dollars moved in neat, round transfers, all routed through shell companies with names like Blue Horizon Ventures and Pacific Sun Trading. My father's name wasn't on them directly, but the signatures authorizing transfers were in Miles Grant's hand. "This is exactly the financial trail we needed," EI said. "Image every file, back up the servers, and make sure we have warrant logs for each device." The search was still underway when my phone buzzed. It was a field supervisor from the Ventura warehouse. "Agent Carter, you're going to want to come down here. We've just cracked a container marked custom Italian cabinetry, and it's full of vacuum-sealed packages. Preliminary test says pure cocaine, at least 200 kilos. I exhaled slowly. 200 kilos on a single shipment. That was over $8 million wholesale. And it wasn't even close to the total volume we were tracking. By late afternoon, the evidence room at our LA field office was filling with confiscated items, altered manifests, crates with hidden compartments, pallets of seized narcotics. I stood in the middle of the organized chaos, watching my team work, gloved hands logging evidence, analysts marking locations on the case map, financial crimes agents tracing payment flows. Every piece of this operation had been years in the making. Torres came over, holding a tablet. "We've also found emails between Delgado and your father. They're careful, but there's enough to establish conspiracy. The language is coded, but context is clear. They knew exactly what they were moving." I stared at the screen. The words blurred for a second, not because I didn't understand them, but because part of me had been hoping for something else. Some shred of proof that my father had been ignorant or manipulated. But this was intentional. Torres hesitated. "You okay?" I squared my shoulders. "Yeah. Just makes the next step easier." The next step would be the interviews, and I already knew the first two people I'd be talking to, my father and Anthony Delgado. The holding area in the LA field office was quiet except for the low hum of fluorescent lights. My father sat at the far end of the table, his hands cuffed in front of him, a paper cup of water untouched. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, shoulders slumped, suit rumpled, eyes hollow. I closed the door behind me, letting the click echo in the room. "You asked to talk to me. Here I am." He gave a humorless laugh. "Funny. I always imagined if we ended up in the same room like this, it'd be because you were finally taking me up on a job offer." "This isn't a job interview," I said flatly, pulling a folder from under my arm. "It's a federal interrogation. And right now, you're looking at charges for conspiracy to traffic narcotics, money laundering, and aiding a criminal enterprise." Minimum 20 years. You're lucky we're not adding continuing criminal enterprise. That would mean life. He shifted in his chair. Jessica, I didn't run drugs. I ran a business. I just didn't ask too many questions. I slid a series of printed emails toward him. You didn't have to ask questions. You gave the answers. Shipment schedules, preferred ports, names of trusted customs inspectors. And you authorized every single wire transfer to Delgado's offshore accounts. His jaw tightened. It wasn't supposed to be this big. At first it was just a way to move things faster. Grease the right palms. Then Delgado brought in his people. It kept growing. I thought I could keep it separate from family. I leaned forward. You didn't just fail to keep it separate. You made Daniel your successor. You were grooming him to take over a trafficking pipeline. For the first time, his eyes flashed with genuine alarm. Daniel didn't know. I kept him in the dark. Not for long, EI said. We have enough to show he was benefiting financially, even if he didn't know the source. He's already on our watch list. He rubbed his face with cuffed hands. So what now? You want me to flip on Delgado? I want you to give me everything. Names, routes, suppliers, bank details, safe houses. You cooperate. Maybe you see daylight before you're 80. You stonewall, and you die in prison. He stared at me for a long time. And if I do this, you'll make sure your mother's okay? She'll be fine, EI said, though part of me didn't know if I believed it. When I left the room, Torres was waiting in the hall. His softening. Delgado? Your turn, EI told him. But I want to be in the room. We crossed to another interrogation suite. Anthony Delgado was sitting there like he was in a board meeting, posture perfect, suit still sharp despite the hours in custody. His lawyer sat beside him, a slick man with a polished smile. Mr. Delgado, Torres began, we have you tied to over a dozen shipments containing controlled substances, documented communications with Carter Imports, and financial records linking you to cartel distributors in Colombia. Do you want to start talking, or should we move straight to arraignment? Delgado smirked. You think I'm going to flip on an operation that's made hundreds of millions because you found some paperwork? You'll never make it stick. I set a folder on the table and opened it. Revealing high-resolution photos, Delgado shaking hands with known cartel members, unloading crates at the Ventura warehouse, even a grainy still from a wiretap video of him counting stacks of cash. Operation Pacific Crown isn't paperwork, EI said. It's 3 years of surveillance, wiretaps, and undercover buys. We've got enough to convict you without a single witness. His smirk faltered. The lawyer leaned toward him, whispering urgently. Delgado leaned back in his chair, studying me. You've been the ghost, haven't you? The one they kept talking about. I should have recognized you at the wedding. That's the point, EI said. You weren't supposed to. Torres closed his notebook. We'll let you think about it, Mr. Delgado. You've got until morning to decide if you want to spend the rest of your life in Florence ADX or in a federal facility with a release date. We stepped out into the hall. Torres glanced at me. Your father's our best shot. Delgado's ego won't let him crack first. I nodded. Then we work him until he does. I knew the next 24 hours would decide everything, whether this operation ended with guilty pleas and long sentences, or with months of drawn-out trials and the risk of someone walking free. And that meant I'd be sitting across from my father again before the sun came up. The field office was quiet after midnight, the kind of quiet that only happens in buildings where the work never really stops. My desk was stacked with files, surveillance reports, intercepted messages, financial statements, but my mind kept circling back to the interrogation room 2 floors below. Torres walked in carrying 2 coffees. "He's still awake," he said, setting one on my desk. "Hasn't asked for a lawyer. Hasn't asked for food. Just sitting there." "That means he's thinking," I said. I grabbed the coffee and headed down. Through the observation window, I saw my father slouched in the metal chair, eyes fixed on the table. The man who used to walk into boardrooms like he owned the air seemed smaller now. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. "Couldn't sleep?" He gave a faint smile. "Not exactly a 5-star hotel." I sat across from him, laying a single photograph between us. It was an old family picture, me at 14, wearing an oversized baseball cap, standing next to him on the dock behind our house. He was holding a fishing rod in one hand and a beer in the other. Back then, I thought he could do no wrong. "Remember that day?" I asked. He studied it for a long time. "You caught the biggest fish, not me. You wouldn't stop talking about it for a week." "I also remember what you told me," I said. "A Carter never backs down from a challenge." He gave a bitter laugh. "Didn't think that advice would come back to bite me." I leaned forward. "Dad, this is the challenge. You can back down now, pretend you were just along for the ride, let Delgado call the shots, or you can take control of the ending. If you cooperate, you write the last chapter. If you don't, someone else will." He stared at the photo again, his fingers brushing the edges. "You know why I started all this? After your mother and I split, I felt like I was losing control. The business wasn't enough. The money wasn't enough. Then Delgado showed up, and suddenly everything was moving, expanding. I thought I could keep it clean enough to pass on to Daniel. I thought I was protecting you." I didn't let my voice soften. "You weren't protecting me. You were putting me in the position of arresting my own father. You did that." His shoulders sagged. "If I give you Delgado's overseas contacts, the shipping schedules, the account numbers, they'll go after me harder." "They'll go after you less," I said. "You'll still do time, but not the kind that ends in a pine box. And you'll keep Daniel out of prison." That got his attention. "You can protect him?" "I can keep him from being charged if there's no direct evidence he knew what he was part of. But if Delgado talks first, that's gone." He rubbed his temples, the silence stretching long enough for me to hear the faint hum of the air vents. Finally, he exhaled. "All right. But I want it in writing. No charges for Daniel, and your mother keeps the house." "I'll take it to the prosecutors," I said. "But you have to give me something real, tonight." He nodded slowly. "Fine. Delgado's main contact in Colombia is Rafael Mendez. He moves shipments through a front company in Cartagena. They're in the ledger in my office safe, behind the framed map of the Pacific. Combination is 42-15-8. You'll find the rest of the network there." I stood, collecting the photo from the table. I'll send Torres to verify. If it checks out, we'll start drafting your agreement. As I stepped out, Torres was waiting in the hall, eyes sharp. That sounded like a name drop. It was more than that, EI said. If the ledger's where he says, we've got the final piece to dismantle the pipeline. Torres didn't smile, but there was a shift in his posture, a readiness. Then let's move. I'll get a team to his office before sunrise. By the time I returned to my desk, the sky outside was beginning to lighten over downtown LA. I stared at the family photo in my hand. The kid in that picture thought her father was a hero. The woman holding it knew better, but maybe, just maybe, he could still do one right thing. The morning sun had barely crested over the Los Angeles skyline when Torres's team rolled up to Carter Import's downtown office. We kept the operation quiet. No sirens, no visible raid jackets, just a locksmith and two agents walking in like it was another day at work. I watched from the surveillance van across the street, coffee in hand, every muscle in my body wired tight. Torres's voice came over the comms. We're in. Heading to the executive office. The camera feed from his body cam showed the familiar space. My father's polished mahogany desk, leather chairs, wall-to-wall shelves. The framed map of the Pacific hung exactly where Dad had said. Torres stepped up, lifted it carefully, and there it was, the safe. Combination? One of the agents asked. Torres recited, a 42, 15, 8. The dial clicked, and the door swung open. Inside were two thick black ledgers, a stack of manila envelopes, and a flash drive in a small plastic case. Torres didn't touch anything until the forensics tech finished snapping photos. All right, Torres said, a bag and tag the lot. Back at the field office, we spread the contents across the evidence table. The ledgers were old school, handwritten entries, neat columns of dates, shipment codes, weights, and cryptic initials. But we knew how to read this language. Mendez's name appeared over 24 times, always linked to shipments routed through Cartagena. The envelopes were even better, photocopies of passports, driver's licenses, and offshore account applications for Delgado's inner circle. Every document tied another knot in the conspiracy. And then there was the flash drive. Our cybercrime team imaged it, running decryption protocols. Within minutes, the screen lit up with spreadsheets, real-time tracking data for containers in transit, complete with GPS coordinates and estimated arrival times. I leaned in, scanning the list. 3 shipments were due to dock in Long Beach within the week. All were disguised as Italian garden sculptures. This is gold, Torres said. We can intercept these before they ever hit distribution. It's more than gold, EI said. It's leverage. Delgado's still holding out, but when he sees we've already cut off his next 3 paydays, he'll start talking. Before we could get comfortable, the secure line on my desk rang. I picked it up. It was our contact at the port of Long Beach. Agent Carter, we've got chatter. Someone tipped off a shipping crew about an investigation. They're talking about diverting a container mid-route. That was the risk. Word of a raid or a flipped co-conspirator could ripple through the network fast. We needed to lock this down before Delgado's allies scattered like roaches. Get a team to the port, EI told Torres. I'll handle Delgado. When I walked into the interrogation room, he looked less composed than the night before, tie gone, sleeves rolled, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. His lawyer still sat beside him, but his posture screamed discomfort. "You've got a problem, Anthony," I said, tossing a printed manifest onto the table. 3 shipments, Long Beach, Wednesday. We have the tracking data, the manifests, the bills of lading. By the time you walk out of here, they'll be in federal custody. His jaw tightened. "You can't touch what's outside your jurisdiction." I smiled without humor. "You think I don't have DEA, Homeland Security, and the Coast Guard on speed dial? Try me." His lawyer leaned in again, whispering quickly. Delgado didn't look at him. He was staring at me. "You've been busy," he said finally. "And I'm guessing Carter gave you that ledger." "Doesn't matter how I got it," I said. "What matters is what happens next. You can take your chances in court, or you can give me Mendez and the rest of your pipeline. I already have the shipping data. I just need the people." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then Delgado leaned back, exhaling through his nose. "Get me a deal that doesn't have the word life in it, and maybe we can talk." That was as close to surrender as he was going to get without paperwork. And it was enough for now. I left the room, signaling to Torres. "Get the U.S. Attorney on the line. Tell them we've got movement." The net was closing. The only question was who would decide to swim into it first, Delgado, Mendez, or one of the smaller fish looking to save their own skin. Either way, I was done watching from the sidelines. By the time we reached the port of Long Beach, the sun was just a pale smear through the morning haze. Cranes loomed like skeletal giants over rows of stacked containers, and the smell of diesel and saltwater hung heavy in the air. Our convoy rolled in quietly, DEA, Coast Guard, and port security blending into the constant movement of trucks and forklifts. The average worker wouldn't know anything was different. That was the point. Torres joined me at the edge of the main loading dock. "Container numbers match the manifests from the flash drive," he said, handing me a tablet. 2 already on site, 3rd due in within the hour. We split our teams, half in position at the cranes, half staged to intercept trucks before they left the port. From a distance, I could see the long steel boxes with their faded shipping line logos, looking as ordinary as any other cargo in the endless maze. But I knew what was inside. At 8:15, the bolt cutters snapped through the first seal. 2 agents swung the heavy doors open, revealing neat stacks of wooden crates wrapped in protective foam. A crowbar pried one open. Inside was a marble garden statue, life-size, a robed figure holding an urn. I stepped closer. "Check the weight." An agent tilted it carefully. Hollow thuds echoed from inside. Within minutes, they'd broken through the base, revealing vacuum-sealed bricks of white powder packed tight inside the stone shell. Preliminary field test. Cocaine. High purity. Estimated street value. Tens of millions. The second container yielded the same result. Statues, columns, and ornate fountains, all hiding identical payloads. Each crate was photographed, weighed, and tagged before being reloaded under secure escort. By the time the third container rolled in on the flatbed, Delgado's entire week of profit had evaporated in front of my eyes. And he didn't even know the worst of it yet. Because while we were tearing apart his shipments, Torres's secondary team was hitting his safe houses in East LA and San Pedro. They found more than just drugs, stacks of cash, encrypted phones, and documents linking him to 3 other import companies, all of which were now under active investigation. At 11:30, my secure phone buzzed. It was the U.S. Attorney's Office. "We've got Delgado's counsel on the line," the prosecutor said. "They want to discuss terms." "Sounds like your port seizure got his attention." I didn't smile. "Good. Set it up for this afternoon." By the time I walked into the interview room again, Delgado looked like a man who'd seen his empire crumble overnight. His lawyer was already sweating through his suit. "You win," Delgado said, before I'd even sat down. "Mendez. You want him? He's in Miami until Friday, staying at a condo in Brickell. I can give you his secure number, his career's name, and the drop locations in Cartagena." "That's a start," I said. "But you're going to give me everything. If you hold back and we find it ourselves, the deal's off." His lawyer nodded quickly. "Full disclosure, in exchange for a 20-year cap. He'll serve it in federal, not state, with eligibility for reduction based on cooperation." It wasn't my call to finalize, but it was enough to move forward. I stepped out into the hallway to relay the terms to the U.S. Attorney. They agreed, conditional on Delgado delivering verifiable intel within 72 hours. Back in my office, Taurus dropped into the chair across from me. "So, that's it? Years of work, and it's over?" "Not over," I said. "We've still got Mendez. And if we take him down, the rest of the pipeline collapses for good." He grinned faintly. "You ever take a vacation?" "Not yet." I looked down at the ledger on my desk, my father's handwriting still crisp in the margins. Maybe when the ink dries on the last warrant. That night, I drove past my old apartment. The lights in the living room were on, my mother's silhouette framed against the curtains. I didn't stop. Not yet. She'd get my visit when I knew the case was airtight and my father's deal was locked. Because I'd learned something over these last 3 years, justice wasn't just about arresting the bad guys. It was about making sure they stayed down, no matter who they were to you.